Hello, welcome on in everybody. Let's talk a little bit about New World's PvP. The game's been out for a few months now, and there's been quite a few changes since the game's release to PvP. Initially on release, PvP was a lot of fun, but there were definitely some problems, I think, that made PvP not as great as it could be in New World. There were some performance issues around the larger PvP war mode. Outpost Rush was not available on the launch of the game, and there weren't really a lot of incentives to do much open world PvP outside of trying to push for faction influence for your territory. And New World's early game balance was definitely favoring some weapons more than others, and resulted in a PvP meta where a lot of people were running very tanky, kind of stun-centric builds for the most part. So the question is, in 2022, since New World has had a few months to make some changes to PvP, how have things improved, if they have improved at all? So let's start with the first and probably the biggest part of PvP in any game, and that's performance. Performance in PvP is a big deal. Things need to work properly when you use them, and you need to not lag when you're fighting. It makes it a very uncompetitive environment if you and your opponent can't reliably exchange moves, and when lag is the determining factor in a win, well, it's quite a frustrating experience, I think, for everybody involved. So my initial thoughts on performance when the game came out was it was actually pretty good. Open world felt good. I almost never lagged, and I had good performance in almost all of the fights that I had. When I started getting into Outpost Rush later on in the game, I did run into a few situations where I got some lag in the Outpost Rushes, but for the most part, I got good performance in the Outpost Rush as well. The big issue with lag in this game is in the largest scale PvP mode, and that is Wars. Wars are a 40 versus 40 battle, and initially on the launch of New World, there was quite a bit of latency issues with Wars. That being said, they actually managed to patch a lot of the lag issues because a lot of the problems were kind of centralized around the Ice Gauntlet AoEs. So War performance did see a pretty good uptick for a little while, however the addition of the Void Gauntlet has definitely impacted lag in a negative way. We recently had a new patch that hopefully helped a little bit with some of these issues, but I haven't heard anything as of this point. So as it sits right now, Wars do have some performance issues, and yeah, it's not the best. That being said, it's not a game mode that everybody partakes in. I would say that Outpost Rush and Open World are probably a lot more common PvP game modes, and these game modes have much better performance than Wars. So this is definitely an area where I would like to see a little bit of improvement from Amazon. So now let's talk a little bit about just general gameplay performance. Of course, if something is bugged and doesn't work properly, it can be a very frustrating skill to use. We do have a few skills in New World that have some bugs with them, namely things like the Rapier's riposte not working every time. That being said, for the most part, a majority of the abilities work as they're intended, and there aren't any big issues with them. I think the big issue that impacts everybody's performance in PvP the most is actually just the weapon swap bug. It seems for some reason since the last patch there is a bit of a stick on the weapon swap, and at times it doesn't swap your weapon properly, or will say that it swapped your weapon on your UI when your character actually didn't swap weapons. I mean, in short, in PvP, you don't want to have any kind of weird issues or delay like that. Hopefully this is something that Amazon can listen to the player base about and continue to adjust PvP to make it feel smoother. I really don't want to see them go down the route of making things feel clunkier or like you're locked in animations longer than you really have to be for the balance of the game. So now let's talk a little bit about the different PvP game modes. One of the things that I actually really like about New World is that you have a lot of different PvP options, and if you're someone who likes PvP, kind of like me, you have the option to play almost all of the game through with PvP on. This is something that really pulled me to New World initially, and as I continue to play this game, even at the high level, I find myself constantly roaming around the world flagged up, always looking for a skirmish if I can, and of course enjoying that bonus that I get for flagging up now. If you guys didn't know, in a previous patch they had added a luck bonus to when you flag for PvP. So now when you take that risk in the open world of having to fight other players, you're actually given somewhat of a reward for it. That being said, I think a lot of PvP players are just wearing their regular PvP gear, and that extra luck bonus just helps make up for the fact that normally if they were out here collecting nodes, they would have to have that luck gear on anyway. You could always flag up with your harvesting gear on too, but you know, PvP is a pretty risk versus reward situation, so it's all about making that choice for yourself before you step out of the safe zone. And finally, the addition of the luck bonus to flagging has been absolutely huge for getting people to partake in open world PvP. I have seen so many more flag players since that change has come in than any other change in the game. Whether I'm out gathering materials or doing some nightly chest runs, I often see enemy flag players and even groups of enemy flag players just playing all of the different content that the game has. I guess what I'm saying is I really like open world PvP, and I think it's one of the best parts of PvP in New World. The structured 20v20 from Outpost Rush is a fantastic kind of medium scale option that I have a lot of fun playing too. And then of course there's Wars to fill that large scale PvP appetite and let people engage in PvP that actually has an impact on the world around them. I think New World's got a lot of PvP and a lot of different types of PvP for everybody. So now let's talk about balance. Always a big issue for a game like this, especially in MMO, which are notoriously hard to balance for something like PvP. On launch, New World's balance wasn't terrible. It wasn't perfect, but there were some issues for sure. Since then, there has been a lot of balance changes, and I'll be honest, I think balance as a whole has improved quite a lot. In fact, when I'm out there PvPing right now, I find that I run into a huge variety of different opponents and weapons, and there isn't any one weapon or opponent that I seem to not run into or run into that exclusively. I think there are definitely popular choices. I see a lot of Void Gauntlet, I see a lot of Ice Gauntlet, I see a lot of Rapier, and of course, the Great Axe and Hammer has been a popular mainstay since the start of the game. But I don't think we have a profound meta where there's just one build that seems to beat them all. At least when the weapons are concerned, I feel like there's a lot of rock, paper, scissors going on, and certain weapons just do a lot better against each other than other matchups. Like when a Great Axe charges into an Ice Gauntlet's trap, that can't feel very good at all. Now, of course, there are elements of balance outside of just the weapons themselves that have a big impact on combat. One of the ones that I want to talk a little bit about is armor weight. I see a lot of people using the different armor weights in New World. Honestly, I don't really see anybody favoring one armor weight. If anything, I want to say maybe medium is the most common, but I see a lot of light, I see a lot of medium, and I see a lot of heavy, especially in Outpost Rush. I don't know. I don't feel like there's one kind of armor weight where you feel like you're at a huge disadvantage. I think it's all about choosing the right armor weight for the playstyle that you want. Heavy armor if you want to stand and trade, light armor if you want to be the most mobile thing on the battlefield, and medium armor if you want a good mix between durability and mobility. Now, this leads me to the last part I wanted to talk about, and this is one of my big criticisms with PvP in New World right now. It's not something that's in the game right now, but what Amazon is planning for the future. Basically, they want to make it so your gear is the average strength of the item's gear score and your current expertise in that item. I don't like this change for PvP because it makes it a lot harder to swap between builds and still retain the same level of power as if you were on your main build. Itemization is already hard enough if you want to get some really nice choice pieces. Adding the extra grind of expertise is definitely not something that I think PvP players are super into. And then of course there's the proposed increase in gear score to 625, which just adds more grind that will allow someone who spends a lot of time grinding to have a bit more of a competitive edge over someone who just wants to go out there and enjoy some PvP. Honestly, when it comes to an MMO, I'm not sure what the right answer to these kinds of things are, but as it sits, you know, I am a PvP player and my opinion's going to be in the PvP player camp. I want PvP to be as accessible to everyone as possible, and I want everyone to feel like they can at least compete in PvP. At least from my experience, that's how you create the most fun PvP environment for everyone. So there you go, my thoughts on PvP in New World at the beginning of this year. As always, I would love to hear what you guys think. Let me know down below. If you guys want to catch some live gameplay from me, you can give me a look on Twitch. Follow me on Twitter if you want to keep up to date with what's going on with me. And of course, check out my website, pvpnewworld.com. Written information on the game, as well as a written guide to this build here if you're looking for it. Send in your clips to Kristofer at pvpnewworld.com to make it into that New World Top 5 battles. Best of luck to you guys. This show is sponsored by What the Fast, a VPN for gamers. They can give you better ping to your favorite games, especially if you have bad ping to start. There's a link down below in the description for you guys. And last but not least, a massive thank you and shout out to all of my patrons on Patreon. Thank you guys for supporting the show. Thank you everybody just for tuning in and watching. As always, I hope you all enjoyed. Have a great night, everyone, and I'll see you next time.